Assalamualaikum. I am here with my friend waiting to present on topic 9, personal discipline. First of all, I would like to introduce myself and my friend. My name is Nova Raina and this Fatina Anis, Farisha Alia and Liana. Discipline in organization is a way of ensuring that the business is conducted systematically, where our employees or members of the organization are required to adhere to any rule set by the organization. Next, I want to discuss about definition of discipline. Discipline refers to the action imposed by the organization on its employer for follow the organization rules, standard or policy. Traditional approaches to discipline based on punishment are known to promote adversarial relationship between leader and followers. A more effective approach now being used by many companies recognizes good performance and encourage employer commitment to the organization and its goal. Once employers see the discrepancy between actual and expected performance, the burden is on the employer to change. Even with more positive approaches to discipline, organizations still need to have some form of disciplinary procedure, whether formal or informal, that carry successively stiffer penalties for repeated or more serious offences.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Fatima Anis and now I want to talk about objective of discipline. First, it is to encourage marginal employee to higher productivity. Second is to obtain a willing acceptance of the rules, regulations, and procedure of an organization so that organizational goal may be attained. Next is to impart an element of certainty despite several differences in informal behavior, pattern, and other related change in an organization. Next is to develop among the employee to spirit of tolerance and desire to make adjustment.
To tell about type of disciplinary problem. There are two categories of disciplinary problem. First is minor disciplinary problem. Improper behavior that cause not so severe or mild harms to the violators or the other people or the organization. Second is major disciplinary problem. Improper behavior that cause severe harms to the violators or other people or the organization. There are some type of disciplinary problem. First is attendance. Some example of minor misconduct in terms of attendance are late coming, short coming, and absent without leave. Some example of serious misconduct in terms of attendance are habitually coming, felt illness, leaving without permission, asking others to clock in, and all other similar acts. Second is work performance. Some example of minor misconduct in terms of work performance are not completing work assignment, producing substandard product or service, and not meeting established production requirements. And some of the major misconduct in terms of work performance are sleeping on duty, drunk, substance abuse on duty, and conflict of interest. Third is on the job behavior. Some example of minor misconduct in terms of on the job behavior are loitering, failure to use safety device, failure to report injuries, carelessness, and sleeping on the job. And some of the major misconduct in terms of on the job behavior are not wearing safety equipment, insubordination, fighting, gambling, using abusive or threatening language with supervisor, possessions of nicotine or alcohol, and all other similar acts of misconduct.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Siti Noriana binti Santuri. There are 4 methods in disciplinary action. The first method is preventive approach. Preventive approach is the early reminder to the employee about the organization's rule to avoid any misconduct. Counseling assistance is one of the ways to encourage the good behavior in organization. The second method is positive and non-punitive approach. The measurement of discipline focuses on the early correction of the employee misconduct. The third method is progressive approach. Progressive approach is the process of using disciplinary action when an employee fails to correct the problem after being given a reasonable opportunity to do so. The last method is hot stove rule. Hot stove rule is disciplinary rule that can be compared to hot stove for warning, effective immediately, consistently enforceable, and applicable to all employees in a close and impartial manner.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nofarsha Ali binti Muhammad Sobri from KAM1102F. So today I'm gonna talk about disciplinary and regulation in Malaysian public servants. Good employees, all the public servants must have a good working behavior and always dedicated at all times. Is that so? Malaysian public servants are regulated through this approach, which are divided into 4 approaches, which are circular, disciplinary action, termination of service and related, and lastly legislation and information. We're gonna talk about the first sources. Okay, for the first sources, which is through circular. Circular is a guidelines or reminder regarding the conduct of Malaysian public servants produced and communicated to employees from times to times to be as references in the conduct of the public servants. The circular are known as Perkeliling Perkhidmatan Awam and Surat Perkeliling Perkhidmatan Awam. We are going to talk about discipline action. For your information, it is the exercise of disciplinary action in the public sector is based on a set of clearly defined regulation and policies. We can relate it with public service regulation, focus on behavior and discipline. Other else, Public Sector Disciplinary Board Rules and Regulation in 1993, plus the guidelines needed to facilitate and manage among the process of disciplinary. There are 2 guidelines, which are guidelines of disciplinary action and guideline on surcharge. Not only that, government also provided aid in the form of physiological service and disciplinary clinics to help improve the morale and give motivation on the employees. Next, we continue with the third approach, which is termination of service. The government may terminate an employee's service, give sufficient cause. Anyways, action must be in line with established guidelines and procedure. There are 4 termination, which are termination of service guideline, termination of service procedure for misconduct, termination of service procedure for health-related problem, and lastly, termination of service notice. For the last resources is related on the legislation and information. all disciplinary and termination of service action must comply with related legislation, regulation, code of practice, and employment, such as Employment Act 1955, General Order on Chapter A 1974, Service Contract, Employment, Termination and Lay-off Benefit Regulation 1980, Code of Practice for Prevention of Sexual Harassment, and Pledge of Loyalty for Public Service Employment.